Holy smokes.
How 90s cinematic did that feel?
Very good. In a world where Firefighter Nation was once a news agency.
He sent me a couple options, and I said, "That one just takes me right back to my childhood."
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm about to watch a very exciting Disney action movie, but it's just us.
Big stuff today.
Big stuff today. The orange is gone, dead forever, except for my lighting in here, but the orange logo is gone.
That
Never to
makes a
return
Georgia
again.
fan very happy.
That was wearing on me. It's counting down the seconds for the new one. Thank you to Lauren and team who worked tirelessly to deal with every reject we sent back saying, nah, no,
Yeah. We've
not
only
good
been
enough.
working on this for pretty much over a year. Hard since April. Or no,
Yeah.
hard since January, but the concept's 2 years old.
I think you approached me about it like last October.
Yeah.
It's been a minute.
Good
We're
stuff. We're
tired.
finally here.
Well,
Thank
good
goodness.
morning or good
Good morning.
afternoon,
I
whatever
think
it is.
it's still
11
morning.
o'clock. Still morning. So how did we end up here? We should probably talk about that. Where did Nation
Yeah.
come from?
So, Firefighter Nation was an acquisition back in the Pinwell days. It had Firefighter Rescue Magazine, and they had this big website that was a kind of a chat community. And gosh, I guess we've got like 600,000 people on it or something. It's something crazy. And ever since we became Clarion, and some of the web stuff changed. Basically, Firefighter Nation sort of became primarily a news platform that was Firefighter News. Had a few features. We did have Firefighter Life on there for a while, and still the fire rescue leadership type stuff was on there. But 2 years ago at our strat meeting in Florida, one of our folks said, "Hey, we've got this gigantic platform. We're not really using it to its full capability. So what's some ideas on how to make this thing, reinvigorate it and get it into something?" And we started looking at the editorial calendar, and of course, with just the burst of health, the safety, wellness, mental health, and all that, we were like, why don't we go there into that space, and we can still keep, some of the news, but let's start doing more original content and features. Let's look at new contributors that aren't the typical fire engineering old time contributors. Let's get some new folks in that have a voice, and let's go that route. And it grew some legs, and then about a year ago, started putting some budget dollars behind the redesign and the restructuring of the website, which is absolutely beautiful. And it's been up for a couple of weeks now as far as the infrastructure of the website. And
It's been problem free for a couple weeks.
problem free, which is always scary on a relaunch like that. But that's the idea, is that we dedicate 1 month in fire engineering to health and wellness as far as an editorial theme, which is December. And we were like, there's so much changing and so much information out there. What if we devoted every day to health, wellness, safety, lifestyle, firefighter finances, extracurricular activities, whether it's hobbies, how do you disconnect from the job, just all of that stuff. And we wanted to put that into this platform. And so we needed somebody to steer that ship. That's where you came along. And now it's your baby, I guess.
It is my baby. I think one of the most fun parts of Nation versus engineering is when you're writing something for fire engineering, it's going to be a technical, certain level of heaviness piece to it.
Mhm.
There's a lot of minutia that goes into it. versus writing an article for Nation, it's gonna be based on, unless you're a researcher that we've brought in, it's gonna be based on possibly a personal experience or something like that. You don't have to be a subject matter expert to write for this publication. You have to be somebody with a great experience, great opinion, who can articulate it and hope that others can learn from it. And I think that's such a fun and unique thing to be able to do for the fire service is give people this platform to take great or horrible experiences and pass them along with a lesson.
Yeah, it's very similar to bringing the kitchen table to the website in a lot of
That was the
ways.
goal.
So yeah,
Yeah. It was
so
definitely I definitely wanted problems and solutions with this
right.
because we all sit down at the kitchen table and we bring problems, but rarely do we get to hear solutions. We'll all throw out solutions we know are dumb or funny just to lighten the mood, but
Yeah, success
rarely do
stories are
people.
always a great teacher, and
They
failures.
are. We've got a lot of those. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think both
definitely
of us have a lot of experience in that area.
speak for yourself. Actually, yes.
How was the shift, uh, last night, by the way?
You didn't curse me too bad. I was really sweating it. I figured we'd be running about 6 after midnight. I think I went to bed around 11, and I think we only got up 4 times, which was not bad. So, I figured that we were doing this morning, and you were probably giggling as you went to your bed and thinking
Yeah.
I'd be up all night, but it was not too bad.
So
What about
you stay up because 'cause you're still in the firehouse running calls, and, I stay up because 'cause I'm old. So I was probably up at 3 in the morning.
you? Ooh, no. No, no, no. I was up at 3 in the morning as well, just not for the same reasons.
Yep.
Chasing alarm bells.
Good deal. Well, I think everybody needs to know a little background on yourself there.
I don't think anyone needs to hear that. Background on myself. Started volunteering when I was 18. Um, Went to medic school during that time and got hired on right before I turned 20. And I have been working for a pretty decently sized metropolitan department ever since, past 19 years. 19 years starts in 2 weeks. Throughout that ride, I've gotten to do some physical fitness side of it, just in terms of helping out the recruits and learn nutrition and wellness there. Did that in the beginning and then really just fell into the health side of things once friends started getting sick. It's crazy the weird things we see our friends end up with that doctors can't diagnose and all that. So started paying more attention to research and firefighter health with that, seeing how many people were ending up with endocrine hormonal issues. Um, so fell into the wellness side with that, and then really started doing some peer work and fell into the peer side with that and the mental health, and started writing for fire engineering back in I think it was 2022, and was really really alarmed when we got this new editor that I had never met before named David Rhodes, and I thought, well, I don't know this guy, and I write really weird stuff, so he's probably gonna he's probably gonna
Clean
throw me out
house.
the camp. So I got an email from Pete one day, and Pete said, "Hey, David Rhodes wants to talk to you." And I said, "Great. What did I finally manage to do?" So here we are. That's been the road.
Yeah. You wanna tell them a little bit about your my investigation of your, work history?
So I mean, I think you should tell that story.
So, another one of our longtime fire engineering contributors happened to be, Stephanie's
Assistant
operations
chief.
chief,
Yeah.
assistant chief.
Assistant operations chief.
So I called him up. We won't mention any names to protect the guilty. I said, "Hey, what do I need to know about Stephanie White?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, is there anything that I need to stay away from? Like, because I'm thinking about
Is she
maybe
crazy?
putting her." I think I used the word cray cray. Um, I said, "Is she, you know, somebody we need to stay away from, whatever and all. And he goes, "She's a pain in my ass." And I started laughing. I said, "In what way?" "Oh, she's always got, better. She's always trying to do this, that, blah, 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 blah." And I said, "No, now you're getting me really interested." And so he said, "What are you wanting to know this for?" And I said, "Well, I'm thinking about hiring her to sort of create content and give us some direction on Firefighter Nation. That's going to be health, wellness, and all." He goes, "Oh, she'll be perfect for that." And I was like, "Oh, good." So, yeah, you're the pain in the ass
It's
at the
valid.
department. And I guess I could relate to that. So I was like, "Man, this sounds like just the person we want. Somebody who's challenging a little bit, challenging to authority a little bit, not afraid to ask the questions and go there." And so I think it worked out pretty well.
I think he had just had to sit through a very painful meeting with me about 2 weeks before that on cancer awareness messaging, so I think he was done with me for the month probably when you called him. He
He
said,
gets a
"Take her.
kick out of that now.
Get her
He
out
has
of
since
here."
retired. He has since retired and moved on to bigger and better things.
He has, good for
Awesome.
him.
Awesome fella. So
He
what
did quite some time.
I know you
Did
have
did he tell you at one point he was my battalion chief? That's where the pain in the ass part really came in,
gotcha.
was
So it
having to
was
directly supervise.
he was having flashbacks.
Mhm.
Um who are some of the new folks that you've got? I know we've been working on the content side of this for quite a while before the relaunch and before the website went live and all, but I think it'd be interesting to talk about some of those new people that we got that are doing some original content for us.
Well, one of them literally just checked in on Facebook. My phone's lighting up. I wanted a mix of 2 things with this because I think there are a couple categories that are missed when it comes to firefighter life. So I wanted the opinion of a lot of the younger generation because my generation that's got the 15 to 20 years is coming in and getting promoted, unless you're me who doesn't wanna promote. But a lot of people are getting promoted, they're in charge of things. They've got that projection for their voice, kind of that middle generation, and I wanted a lot of we're starting to see a return of really aggressive firefighters, which is such a
Mhm.
breath of fresh air. I feel like when I came in, that was still a culture, and it was really squeezed out of us by this culture of over safety because we
Mhm.
didn't have a lot of research and we did some things wrong, and instead of gently correcting course, we
Went
swerved and crashed into a
way, way,
safety
way
grate.
the other way. Yep.
Right, so we're seeing a lot of these great guys who are saying, "Hey, let's return to being firemen. We have the science to guide us. We can safely be aggressive and get back to being actual firefighters." So, grabbed Preston Lyons from Relentless Rejects and John Valles from Tailboard Misfits, and they're just 2 great, great aggressive firefighters. They're gonna be on later at 2 o'clock, who I think are just really representing this return to the aggressive culture and wanting to be a master of the skill of firefighter. So grabbed then, um, and hopefully they're gonna be recruiting more people, bringing more people of that mindset so they can really start to show that, no, it's okay to be into the job. You can be into the job and still have a home life, which Preston is actually writing a bunch of articles for us on that. He's a new dad. I think his baby girl's just turned 1 years old. So
Mm.
he's been on the journey of discovering what it's like to be into the job and go home and be a really great dad and husband. So that's been really neat to see their wheels turning and seeing what they're creating with podcasting and writing for us. Started to bring in also guys who just retired. So Jim Bernecka, who's been around for a little while, he does APS radio for fire engineering. He's taught at FDIC. He is bringing in his partner Nick from Brothers Helping Brothers. They have that amazing wellness conference out in Ohio. They're coming in and doing a podcast that's going to focus on health, but also life after retirement, because I think we don't really hear about that, right? Guys retire, they might come back, they might visit the firehouse a couple times, but that's it. And we kind of throw them into this deep end of here's Here's retirement, figure it out, good luck. And that's a group where we end up seeing a lot of suicides as a result, because there's nobody saying, here are the struggles I faced when I retired. Here's what you need to know going into it mentally. Because I can't imagine what it's going to feel like probably the first 2 weeks after I retire. First week's going to be great. I'm going to be getting sleep for the first time in my life.
I thought
Second
that
or
too. It
third
didn't
week,
work
or
out
maybe,
for me.
well, you kind of dove straight into something new. That's a
No, it
lot of
was
work.
weird. I had about a year and a half of actually being retired, just doing teaching and still doing FDIC, but not doing this job. But I could not sleep. I could not
Hmm.
sleep. That was what I was looking forward
And
to. I was like, "Oh, I'll be able to sleep," but I needed the noise and because I guess I was always listening to the radio, and it was weird. I didn't have trouble sleeping at home when I was working shifts. Obviously, I didn't sleep too much at the station. I mean, I guess I was tired, so that made me sleep well at home. But
right.
yeah, I got to where it was like every night I was up at 3 and could not go back to sleep. So crazy,
So
absolutely crazy.
my first editor's opinion, something I talked about was my entire adult life. I've had these chunks of 6 mornings in a row in a firehouse, right? Because we work on 24, off 24. Wait, where am I? On 24, off 24, on 24, off 24, on 24. So you're coming in for 3 shifts and you're leaving 3 days off.
That
And
was
then you
too
have
complicated for my generation.
no. And then you have 3 mornings that you're actually waking up in your own home. So 2/3 of my mornings are in a firehouse. So I mean, for anyone who's on shift work, I can't imagine what your brain is doing. If you're doing that your entire adult life, that is the only work schedule I have ever known. So I'm sure when I go to retire, my body's going to be like, get up. It's
Oh
the
yeah,
first
I
day of the
woke up
tour.
every third day. I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning if I was sleeping. Most of the time I was already up, but
Did you
crazy.
do 24/7 too?
No. Well,
Oh,
a long time ago when I first started, but yeah, the last 35 years, I guess, were 24/48
that's still better than 24/24.
with a
But yeah.
few, punishment shifts of,
Mm.
8
Mando.
hours 8 hours a week or, 40 hours a week.
Mm.
Couple of headquarters tours.
Ooh, that's what happens when you decide to be important. Some of us just ride the
Yeah.
back step.
That or piss somebody off
I try not to do that
with
with
that
my
challenging
opinions.
personality.
Yeah.
Alright, you were
No.
on a good roll. I interrupted you. You were
No,
talking
that's
about,
okay. So, e
contributors and sleep and
yeah, even though we wanted to create a platform that's vastly for this new generation, I'm not gonna leave my generation or the off-coming generation out of it. So we wanted to cover that as well. Um, and just, those were kind of the 2 main ones I recruited for, because I think we already have a lot of people that are in kind of my generation, that middle to end of their career. We're gonna be joined, he just texted me, soon, by Dave McGlynn. He's gonna be doing some podcasting stuff for us. He's the training officer guy for FDIC. That's what he speaks about and writes about, but bringing him in to talk about more of the mental side of things, both mental health wise, but also we have this huge mental side of training that we don't talk about a lot. There are a lot of guys out there starting to do some great stuff with training and just the almost athletic side of things. We've all seen athletes who are just genetically blessed. They're great and they don't have the right mindset or don't have the right tactical mental training. So they suck as athletes. Bringing him in to kind of talk about that side of training. Um, so I feel like we comfortably encompassed all generations. Hopefully,
mhm,
from the brand new probie coming in to make sure they know what the expectations are, but also what the reality of their first couple shifts are, so they're prepared with sleep hygiene, go home, take a nap, get in bed the right time the night before, and how much that affects your health, to mental resiliency. And I hate buzzwords, but that's the one everyone recognizes, which is, all right, have have a plan for what you're going to do the shift after pardon the French, an absolute shit show.
Yeah.
How are you going to handle it? What are you going to do? So I think we comfortably kind of covered in terms of her career, cradle to grave.
Yeah. That's awesome. Good stuff. And nobody can tell the generational stories like the people in that generation. And that's what's important, is to hear the perspective of someone who's at the end of their career, in the middle of their career, and at the beginning of their career. And we talk about the failures on the scene, always go back to communication. And this Firefighter Nation platform opens up that wide spectrum to get all perspectives. And you can sort of start to see, even though, one of the biggest mistakes is like my generation making an assumption that they know how it is for that newest generation, and telling people how they are and telling people what we need to do about it. But when you hear from their perspective, you're almost always wrong. And they're like, no, we're actually not like that. We actually want this. And it's just interesting to maybe connect those dots and make those relationships tick. And hopefully it leads to a lot better conversations in the firehouse, a lot better policy when it comes to the administration at the fire departments, and understanding just what makes everybody tick, and what their needs and perceptions are. I think it's just huge. It's just huge to get that out there.
I think one of the interesting things that I learned the hard way, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, was how much um, has changed in terms of calls following you home. And what I mean by that is, ran a really gruesome call that kind of got under my skin a little bit because it involved a very young person. And when I was talking to a police officer getting some information, I didn't realize my phone was in my pocket of my job shirt. And when I finished all my reports and all that, opened up my phone, and the first thing the web populated was a story about that kid. And it was like, and that was never something, when I joined the fire service, texting was barely a new thing. You had to hit the button 3 times to get the letter you wanted. This technology wasn't here. So it has been interesting to see the older generation say some things about the younger generation. But I mean, we're now being exposed to a little bit more of the humane side of things than before. Before, you could run a call and never hear about that person again and you'd be fine.
Right.
Now it's all over social media and all that. And we weren't prepared for that. I wasn't prepared for that. So it's so crazy to see how technology has also made mental health needs evolve. So, well, Dave McGlynn has joined the chat, and he's just sitting there in the waiting room, hanging out by himself. There he is. Can we hear him? Oh, there he is.
Dave.
Yeah, how's it going, Chief? Hi,
Steph. How are you?
I'm good. I'm incognito because ethics. So
yeah,
I'm working for
You're at work.
I cannot confirm nor deny what you just said.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us this morning. I was talking about what you're going to be coming in here talking about as you join this side of things. We know what you've been doing for fire engineering with training and teaching people how to set up great training programs and be a great training officer. And I sat in on one of your classes in FDIC, and I thought, I need to get this man on one of my podcasts because my ADHD self was actually paying attention. So therefore I figured other people would. So you and I had some great conversations about, the fact that people our age, the younger generation is, and sometimes too much so, starting to pay attention to mental health way more than you or I ever did coming in. You and I are around the same age, same amount of time in. And our generation is really kind of 50-50 of whether they've bought into brain health and resiliency. And so you and I had some great conversations about talking about that, but then also the whole mental side of training. Now's your turn to talk. I'm done.
Right. Great segue. Now, well, one, every politician, thank you for having me on the show, and I want to thank everybody and thank God and my family and all that. So, seriously, thank you for the opportunity. So while I was in the backstage or whatever, I was just listening to some of the things you guys were saying. So, let's talk about one thing with the sleep thing, right? So, Chief was talking about these sleepless nights, and then after he had retired, how that was. So I worked, and Steph, I know you did too, because we talked yesterday. I had worked a 24 yesterday, and I'm on a short time now, so I'm exhausted. I didn't get much sleep. The guys were doing their thing and etc. I know you were running a few calls as well.
I'm gonna ignore the fact you said that to the girl on the engine yesterday.
Right? I know you were busy. I know you were.
Not touching that one, Dave.
But seriously, like, it's kind of funny because we had on the training schedule for me to talk about this very topic that you want me to talk about here at work. So I had been the instructor for it. My new role and position, I typically don't instruct anymore, but this one was one that the new training officer wanted me to touch on. So you're right. We didn't talk about it a lot back in the day. Us Gen Xers or cuspers, the people that are right before the millennial category, we were raised by the Gen Xers and the baby boomers, and it wasn't something that we talked about, and that's okay, because we recognize now that it's something that we should probably cover and discuss, right? So with that said, this morning we talked to the guys, and one of the biggest things that I wanted to hone in on wasn't just the PTSD part. I don't want to dismiss it and say it's easy to talk about, but it's easy to train guys on PTSD. What about home life? We spend literally up to 30 years, half the year in the firehouse. Some people, they volunteer while they're on the job, and that's okay. It's just, where's your time at home? And then what's that home time look like? Furthermore, what's your brain capacity look like when you're in the firehouse because you're detached from home? There's a high rate of divorce, a high rate of suicide, a high rate of depression in our field. I'm not going to sit here and get on a soapbox about it. I know you wanted me to discuss it. I'll say it's never been something that I've been comfortable discussing overly public, but more in an intimate setting because I have my own demons that I deal with. But nonetheless, it's something that we need to share with our folks so that they understand that, I say the fire service is like you're two international kids and you come to America for the first time and everybody speaks English except for you and this other kid who's from a completely other side of the country that you're from. You guys never knew each other until you arrived in America. But you guys become best friends because the two of you speak each other's language. In the fire service, our spouses may not understand certain things that we're detached about, but we understand it. And we understand it better than anybody. We speak each other's language. So it's important to train on this because the more we train on it properly, there's oftentimes they do these suicide prevention classes, and then the joke is as they walk out, it's like, well, I wanted to kill myself having to listen to that story. We're doing a bad job of training people when we walk away thinking that.
Do you think half of it is because it's so, I hate to say canned, but it's so canned, the way we approach mental health? It's not, first off, I truly hate the word mental health. I feel like we screwed it up how we train people in the beginning, and it should be brain health because it really is science. I mean, we're not getting sleep. We're taking our hormones up and down with the lack of sleep. We're dosing ourselves with insulin and sugar by eating crap and going up and down with that. Use the word brain health because we are damaging our brains. I mean, look at all these athletes who have had so many concussions and then they go absolutely insane, right? Well, we're not having tons of concussions, but we're abusing our brains for years in a very medical sense. So I think we need to throw away the word mental and make it brain. And I think that's the reason so many people walk out of training and they're like, well, that was freaking boring. Well, yeah, because it was a canned speech on feelings versus no, let's put some science behind it. Let's explain to people, hey, yes, what you are going through, there is a heart and emotional side of things, but there's also a ton of freaking science and logic behind why people are struggling with the things they're struggling with. And if we can start to take one little thing off the plate, all right, we're going to teach you how to eat correctly, so that your sugar's not going up and down, and you're helping your hormones by eating these things. How many guys in the fire department have low T? You don't have to answer that. It's almost everyone. How do we compensate through these things? And I think that is what needs to be going into training.
No,
Not to sound
I don't
not
disagree.
to sound callous, let's talk about feelings, but we all know feelings are the byproducts of that stuff. So let's talk about let's talk about science. Let's talk about how to nerd it up, fix it.
Yeah, no, you're right. But to see that just with that, so like there's an approach. Yeah, I don't claim to have any kind of level, but what works for me in my methodology is there has to be this segue, this bridge from like speaking like we talk to covering the science piece, right? And
You're
how we
from
marry
Jersey. None of us speak like you talk.
right. Nobody talks like me. No, I know, but but the truth is
I haven't understood a word yet.
right. I was gonna say, Chief, I just said
Why I'm
like
quiet.
what?
We got to decode it to Southern for the chief.
I got AI running. It's behind.
No, but that's the important thing is like you said about the feelings thing. Like I think we lose people when we try to make it personally feelings. Like personal stories are always great. I agree with that. But we can lose people in overdoing it. I think one of the things that we failed at is we've saturated. We'll call it brain health. So we've saturated that with as a buzzword and a segue to claim notoriety. And as a result, people have been less receptive and more what's this person up to? And it loses its luster and it loses its validity. So at least in the opportunity I have, whenever I'm comfortable enough to speak on this, because I'm just going to tell you, like, I'm not comfortable to talk about this. I'm doing this for you because you asked, and I appreciate it. And it is important. It's near and dear to me. You have to find a balance on how you instruct this stuff. That goes with everything in our service, in our field. If you want to talk to people about lithium ion batteries, it's a pretty boring topic, but if you explain the science behind it and you sexy it up so that we accept it, you can do the same thing with any type of topic. And I think that's where we fail in training on things like this. Like I'm trying to explain to guys, like, we have to understand that we have to create a culture and an environment where it's acceptable for somebody to be checked out. We have guys that go through divorces. Unfortunately, I've experienced a firefighter messing around with another firefighter's wife, which resulted in a divorce. It was hard in the firehouse. How do you deal with that? How do we find a comfort zone where we're able to train folks on here's how we deal with that. Here's how we rally behind that. How do you create a safe environment where everybody feels comfortable to talk about this stuff and not just keep their feelings to themselves? The old adage of check your feelings at the door. Like, yeah, when it comes to ball breaking and joking, you check your feelings at the door. I'm all day long about that. We live in a society where the unique beauty of the fire service is we can still joke at the firehouse without crossing the line, but that's just it. Knowing that there is a line and how to toe that line without, crossing it. And like I said earlier, no one understands us better than us. So we fail when we don't feel comfortable to confide in each other. And how that's captured, honestly, it's not just a leadership thing. It's not a policy thing. It's through things like this. This is an instructional methodology, having these opportunities to share information with everybody, not just us three talking, not just for fire engineering or for Firefighter Nation, but for the fire service, is a way for us to be able to connect with people and let them know, like, hey, man, not sounding corny, but sometimes it's okay to have a shitty day and to be checked out, and you have to get stuck at the firehouse. Because you should feel comfortable being with your comrades, because no one speaks us better than us. We do that through training. We shed light on it. We compare the numbers. There's 167 first responders committed suicide in 2023. 134 were in line of duty. We don't talk about the difference that there was 34 more people. We talk about how the job is inherently dangerous and how we could die in a line of duty. And Chief, I know you dealt with that down in Atlanta. You guys had that tragic thing. We talk about this stuff. We know the historical data of firefighters that die in a line of duty, but we don't talk about the 34 more people killed themselves. And I'm not trying to make this about suicide. I'm just saying, why are we not talking about that? We glorify the line of duty, and that's okay, and I believe we should. But we're not doing a good job of preventative maintenance because we're either A, too afraid to actually cross the threshold and talk about it vulnerably, or B, we don't know how to talk about it, so we act macho and we say, wow, it's not a big deal. There's no such thing as that in the fire service. Well, I beg to differ. The numbers, they would prove you wrong. So while I appreciate that you got balls of steel, I love the fire service just as much as you. This shit happens. The numbers don't lie. So we have to make that upfront. Hey, there's the numbers. We don't need to make it a buzzword. We don't need to sex it up to make it a notoriety claim to fame. We need to do it with purpose so that people understand that it's something that should be incorporated into our training programs. We'll get the best out of our culture and out of our people if they feel comfortable in all aspects of the fire service. Everybody wants to train on search and hallways. That's fun. We got to make it just as much, not fun, but receptive to have these type of conversations. That's where we fail in training. At least that's what I think.
When does that need to start?
Well, here's a question for you.
Now, yesterday.
Like, especially like with the new folks coming in too, like day one.
100%.
Here's what to expect. Because we talked about people interpreting things different. What's a joke to me and absolutely the best firehouse humor, that line is totally different with a new person. Possibly they think they're getting picked on or whatever. And we think of it as, hey, if you're not getting picked on, they don't like you. And so that's the hard part for my generation is everybody's line is in a different place. and you got to figure that out, and
we're at a crossroads with generations right now. I mean, you think about it, Chief, you're still young. You had retired a few years ago, but you're still young because there's dudes on the job.
Why,
way
thank you.
60. Yeah,
Hold on. I'm the editor here. Don't suck up to him.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, there's dudes that's still on a job that are way past their 60s. So that being said, we have ornery, right at the cusp of the baby boomer into the Gen X thing that are out there still doing it, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. But then we have 3 other generations. Do the math. We have people coming in fire service. Average age is about 20 years old when they get on the job, if it's career, and they volunteer at 18, right? Well, do the math. It's 2024. It's almost 2025. We have 4 generations of people living in our firehouses, 4 generations of people going on the fire truck. So average fire truck shows up with a company on FPA, shows up with 4 people on the rig, right? You could have 4 different generations. That's 4 entirely different backgrounds and mindsets. So you're right, Chief. It's a great point is how do we create a language that everybody understands and accepts or it resonates with? It's a difficult task because you're talking to a guy that's 62 and you're talking to a kid that's 20. It's real hard for them to see the value in certain things. It's a different type of generation. I don't disagree. I don't have the answer for it, but it doesn't mean we stop.
I'm going to give you a new challenge. This is something that's been on my mind for the past 2 or 3 days. I'm starting to see a new trend in a lot of firewives starting support groups on the internet, Instagram pages, a lot of stuff like that. And I've been a little cautious of some of the things I've seen and things they're talking about their firefighter coming home and wanting to nap and stuff like that. And then it hit me, when our families in our firehouse, Christmas, Thanksgiving, pretty summer days, they're there and we're putting our best foot forward, most of us, to really welcome them in. And well, they're not running the calls. And when they see us rush out the door, it's adorable. They're filming. It's all a very cutesy, canned experience when our families see us in a firehouse. So of course, when we get home, well, I know you were just sitting around laughing with the guys. Maybe you ran, a couple calls and you're a hero going on down the road in your fire truck. And they don't see just the grind, the exhaustion, not getting a single meal on time, being chronically dehydrated, having a headache, just
Staff
all
meeting.
the staff meetings. That's the worst of all of it. All of that dumb little stuff that leads to us needing to come home and maybe lock ourselves in a room for 5 minutes with a cup of coffee or, God forbid, take a couple hours nap. How do we, just reading some of these comments and not bashing any of these people, because I too would probably have the same opinions they do if that's the lovely picture I saw of my firefighter's life. How do we start to train families? How do we start to set up realistic, better education for families? Because I mean, we did a family night in recruit school 20 years ago. Families came, they saw us do a burn. Well, there was a picnic beforehand and we went home that night. We do cutesy stuff for families. At no point do spouses, parents, kids, anybody know the self-maintenance time that we're going to need when we get off duty. And I think that's a huge part of the mental brain health component too, is that if I'm coming off shift and I'm rushing straight into whatever
Another fire
chaos,
department.
another fire department, but this time I'm the damn chief, which I don't want to be. I mean, it's just, I'm in charge of solving all the problems all of a sudden. And I ran 20 after midnight. I mean, what is this? How do we start to train families, since you're Mr. Training Officer?
I was
Because I
hoping
do
the
think
chief was going to have the crack at that one first so I could go off of him.
he can have the crack at it.
No, I'm letting the younger generation answer that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks.
I'll
You
bring
gave
my
him a
wisdom in
compliment.
at the end.
Yeah, you gave him a compliment and he just threw you under the bus, Dave.
Oh yeah, he's good at tennis. I'll tell you, man. Trust me, he's good. I don't mean to cliche it up and say, well, it's a great question. It's an interesting question.
I'm okay with you saying that's a great question. I thought it was a great question too.
Well, because I don't like, it's not that I don't have the answer. So it just, while you're saying it, it's making wheels turn in my head. So one thing just shed on this, because it's just how my brain's working right now.
I expect an article out of this, by the way.
Oh, sure. Thanks. In order to effectively train people, you have to be a student of the information that you're going to train on. So with that, every time, like Chief, you and I have had multiple conversations, Steph, you and I have had multiple conversations, and I always have these moments where I'm like, oh, like my wheels are turning right now. Because every opportunity I get to talk to somebody, I take as an opportunity to develop and learn. So this is a learning thing for me. You open my eyes to, like, I'm of that old school generation, because those who I was raised by. I don't share everything with Chrissy. I don't know why. I just don't. There's things that I just don't. I don't know. And I think maybe that's part of how there's certain things that we should, and I'm sorry, but this is how I feel. There's certain things that we should shelter from our spouses. And I'm not picking on you, Steph. You have a unique setup where, Billy has our background, right? Not everybody has that. So you get to share that with him where, like, Chrissy works in HR. You know what I mean? If I were to tell her half the shit that goes on in the firehouse, she'd be like, Chrissy literally makes the joke and calls me an HR nightmare, So, we do need to find a way to introduce them to a little more intimacy of our thing. I don't disagree. I think in turn that would create some level of comfort at home as well. Because like I said before, I said only, we only speak our language, but the sad reality is spend all that time away from the family. And then when we're done with this and we hang everything up, we're supposed to go back to them. And it's almost like you're starting over for some people. Sometimes guys get divorced after they retire because, like, they're not used to that lifestyle.
They're home.
Well,
Right.
If I spend 2/3 of my mornings of my life thus far coming into or leaving a firehouse. And I mean, that means a third of my mornings I'm waking up next to my significant other. It's a whole different thing.
Right. It was a great thing you said. So I'll say, I don't know the answer. However, I will say I encourage us to find
What I'm
that
saying
balance.
is I'm expecting your fire department to now have this program within the next year.
Right. Thanks. Yeah.
For
But no,
incoming
but
families.
all jokes aside, that's not a problem. Setting that expectation or that objective. We talk about this stuff, but we don't act on it. Every firehouse has the good idea fairy, right? And that person comes with these great ideas, but then they don't execute any stuff. And then a year later, we forgot about it. It was a shiny widget. So, right. Everybody has it. So, I will say that the importance and the validity behind what it is that you had just said, like it hit me in the feels. Cause I'm like, damn, like I try now to have my family be a part of my life more than I ever did before, because I had missed so much in my time in my career that now with my position, I try very much to involve them, but I also don't involve them. And what I mean by that is like, there's things that I just, I don't know how to vent to my wife. It's not even calls. Like you said before about staff meetings, Chief, you retired as a chief officer. The fire service in general is taxing and consuming, but as you promote up, you deal with more personalities and you have more weight and responsibility that your brain, it hurts. So when I get home, like she doesn't understand, and I don't even know how to explain. Like I'm just kind of checked out right now. I dealt with stupid crap throughout the day, and I just don't feel like talking to somebody for an hour. And I don't know how to explain that to her. So what happens is we clash, and she's Puerto Rican. So it's, we fight different than most couples fight because she's tough. So, it was an eye opener for me. I think that for me, I have to find a way to invite my wife and my family into this life that we have in a certain way where she's sheltered from the things that she needs to be, but she has some level of empathy toward some other stuff.
It's almost I think we almost need to start teaching the next generation and learning as the current generation in relationships, because it's not just with spouses. I struggled for years getting off duty and then having to drive, like working Christmas Eve, getting off duty Christmas morning, driving to meet the family. I got 4 brothers. Nobody's in public safety. It's just me. And going to big family events and listening to normal average problems with jobs and spouses and whatever. To me, if I had just had a really sad day the day before with calls, just felt like such a slap in the face. And then I'd say something pointy and nasty to my family. We're
Sarcastic.
all Italian Irish, and
Right.
let me tell you, the chaos that don't start an Irish Italian fight with 4 brothers. It would get ugly.
Yeah.
And I really had to learn as a sister and a daughter, before you get there, stop somewhere. I don't care if it's the 7-Eleven, grab a cup of coffee, come off duty. And so it took years, but I finally came up with a pre-plan, and it was only 2 or 3 years ago. This was not at the beginning of my career. It was late into my career. Had to come up with a
Low
pre-plan how
learner.
to it's me. It's because I'm a blonde now. Had to come
This
up with a
week.
pre-plan for how to this very true. Stop interrupting me. I have ADHD. True story. I had to come up with a way to be civil around other human beings and pull my mind away from the day before. My husband just laughed. I don't know if you heard him, but he just laughed in the background. We'll have that conversation later.
Part of that is like, that's hard for us to accept their crisis or their stress as real stress, because they're upset about some package didn't arrive on time, or some TV
Yes.
show got canceled, or there's a they got a low tire and they got to get to soccer practice or whatever. And we look at that and go, I just ran a call where a 30-year-old had a heart attack. It's like you guys, that's not even important. Like, go put some air in the tire, pay the bill.
Right.
And it's hard for us to come off of like what's real stress, in our opinion. Again, it's kind of like that line, is people freak out over stuff that we're like, why are you even concerned about that? But in their world, that is their like most important thing. That's a tough one.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Nailed it,
Yeah,
Chief.
you definitely nailed it. My response typically is, these aren't real people problems. When I get hit with that, like,
You get,
When
yeah.
in
I bet you
reality,
get this for that. Oh no,
yeah,
you
oh, yeah,
didn't.
yeah. Trust me, it's interesting in my house, but that
but
is the truth.
in reality, our problems from the day before aren't normal people problems.
No.
Our spouse's problems are normal people problems.
Yep.
We're
Right.
the ones living in the illogical world. And that's the cruel irony of all of it. We're sitting here being a jackass because we're like, it's not, well, I would never be a jackass, but that's not real. In reality, what we just went through is not normal.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too is as things fall apart, like with the culture in an organization, then we look to build a special program to fix it. And that's really a Band-Aid. If obviously we want to appeal to all generations here. So like the key here, no matter what the generational differences are, is you need to create a freaking awesome culture in your organization that people want to come to work. They feel like you've got their back. There's resources, and everybody's a little bit different. But if you focus on that piece and taking care of the culture part of how you're operating, you're not doing punishment assignments. You're not having unfair promotional processes. You're not discriminating. You're not doing all these things that creep into the culture, depending on who and what time the leadership is. Then all this other shit takes care of itself in a way. Now, not to say you don't need some additional resources for that bad call that's something out of the ordinary, where you have some resources, or you have somebody that's having personal issues. But if the culture's strong, the culture itself is the resource that helps them in the healing. It's the friendships, the resources that they feel like, somebody cares about them and has their back. And when that goes away is when we really start seeing, a lot of these other problems surface in an organization. And if your family goes bad, that relationship goes bad, sometimes all they have is the work relationship. And if that's not good, then they don't have
Yeah,
anything.
nothing.
So
I wrote just a little mini article on LinkedIn yesterday. What day of the week is it? It's Tuesday. Tuesday, Saturday, Thursday. Thursday was our brand new probie's first day with us as a whole shift. And during that day, she ran 18 plus calls, but we had a really, really, really enough to actually make me say that's gross. Pedestrian struck washdown of the road, and just a lot of brain matter, a lot of chunks of flesh. It was particularly gruesome. It's her second call, right? Second call, I think our fifth or sixth call. Young guy wrapped his car around a tree, prolonged entrapment. We're on the engine. I hopped on the Medicaid and we took her with us, and the injuries were pretty gross. I was actually impressed. So that's her fifth, sixth call. And then right before dinner time, we had, and we're running tons of calls in between. She's learning things for the first time. We had a teenager playing with a firearm, shot himself in the face, still alive, still writhing around. She's still learning how to take vital signs, and she's having to do this as I'm changing the play, excuse me, second by second, because, situations changing. Nope, actually, sorry, I don't need that. Give me this. Let's triage that appropriately. And I can't imagine. I have a very joyous shift. We are just We're all beat down and tired by the call volume, and we all have fun. And I sat back and I thought about, what if this poor probie had gone to a house like some of the houses I work overtime at, where everybody's got a separate dinner and nobody's ever in the kitchen. Maybe one or two people. You walk in and it's a ghost town, and it's everybody's doing their own thing. And I can't function in that culture, just working overtime. So I can't imagine having that first full day and being surrounded by something that awkward. And like the chief said, it all does start with culture, because with healthy culture, we have that mental space to work on tough family situations. With healthy culture, we have the space. It is the resource. It is sitting down at the kitchen table, enjoying my shift, laughing my ass off. That's the resource. You're right. We might need a little bit more with certain things, but that's a huge resource right there. All starts with culture.
Yep. My crew would have made sure that we had lasagna that night.
You know what? Our captain is absolutely amazing. We tried to make dinner twice, and she said, "Who wants what on their pizza?" And we went and got a bunch of pies and just all hung out and checked on the probie the next day. So
Good stuff. Hey, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Talk about this stuff. It's going to be good.
The culture, like you said earlier, Chief, it's a culture thing, and that's how we touch everybody. It starts in our firehouses with the culture, and then we use these opportunities to grow that culture. You know, this Firefighter Nation, this fire engineering culture. All of us are just saying stuff that we're already doing in our firehouse. We're not any kind of like scholars. We're just sharing what works for us in our firehouse. And I'm telling you, in the opportunities that I've had from you guys, and you know, with the magazine for the past few years, you're connecting with people, just the same circus, different clowns. It starts with culture. That's how we connect. And then it's strengthened through training.
Yeah. And you can have a bad organizational culture and a good fire station culture. So you can, there's some things you can't overcome, you know, organizationally, like you can't change the promotional process or some of that stuff, but you can do a pretty good job at controlling and having a fun and productive, good environment that cares about each other inside your four walls.
You have a chance at creating change there.
Yep.
That is a fixable thing.
And then those people promote and create the same culture in another station. And it's just never on our timeline, you know?
Well, on that note, we're kicking everybody out because this has been an amazing conversation. And now we're going to get ready for the next conversation.
Which starts.
Tell everybody to check out Firefighter Nation, because it's awesome. That's how we have to.
Check out Firefighter Nation because it's awesome. The guy from Jersey said so.
We'll be back in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, we'll be back in 2 minutes.
Thank you, guys.
Love you for joining us, Dave.
See you, Steph. Thanks.
See you.